Welcome everyone for today's study. Today, within the team Spiritism Inspiring Lives, we have an extra team which will be presented to all of us as learners of Spiritism, which is the Spirit Hierarchy. And this will be presented by our dear friend from the United States, Beatriz Lopes, which we later on will present also for those who don't know her. So once more, may you all feel welcome, those who are with us through our YouTube, Facebook channel, and also those through Web Rádio Fraternidade. For us to start our meeting today, I would kindly invite everyone for our initial prayer in order to help us to harmonize ourselves. For those who would like to close your eyes, please feel free to do that. So as we then start to look within ourselves, harmonizing our minds, harmonizing our hearts, for this unique and special moment of enlightenment, that we are connected with enlightened beings, our good friends in the spirit who are always with all of us, either us who are incarnate and all of those in the spirit who are with us, that we may feel the good energies blessing us, involving us, soothing us. And in that way, we also start the meeting by expressing our gratitude for everything that has been given to us, for life in itself, for the blessings that come from God, for the love from Jesus, our guide, our friend, and also our gratitude for the enlightened spirits who are always anticipating us and helping us so that we can expand our consciousness, learn a bit more, change what needs to be changed in our evolution pathway as immortal beings, essentially beings of love and goodness, created by God. As we are united with these vibrations of brotherhood, of fraternity, and in that way we start our study today. Once more, welcome everyone. As mentioned previously, today within our study Spiritism Inspiring Lives, we will be learning about the team, the Spirit Hierarchy, and it will be presented by our friend from the United States, Beatriz Lopes, which is with us already here, Bea, as she likes to be called. Bea has grown up in Spiritism, attending Allan Kardec Spiritist Center in Danbury, Connecticut, in the United States, since the age of 3. And during college, she attended the Long Island Spiritist Center. She has been involved in Spiritism by participating in study groups, giving lectures, delivering a speech at the United Nations, and helped to coordinate a youth spiritist retreat. Bea graduated Stony Brook University with a Bachelor of Science in Applied Mathematics and Statistics. Professionally, she works as a quantitative consultant. Welcome, Bea, to the Spiritist Psychological Society. It's a great pleasure having you with us and learning through the team that you are presenting to us tonight. And in that way, we hand it over to you.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to have the opportunity to be here with all of you today and talk about such a great topic, the spirit hierarchy. Before we get started today, I do want to take a moment to acknowledge the really special day that was yesterday, October 3rd. On October 3rd in 1804, Hippolyte Léon Denisard Reveil was born in Lyon, France. He later went on to be the codifier of Spiritism under the name of Allan Kardec. In the book On the Way to the Light by Chico Xavier and the Spirit Emmanuel, it says that Allan Kardec is one of the most lucid disciples of the Christ, descended to the planet, imbued with his consoling mission. Allan Kardec was born on October 3rd, 1804, with the sacred mission of opening the way to Spiritism. The great voice of the Consoler promised to the world by the mercy of Jesus Christ. So as we go through today and we're talking about the spirit hierarchy and different, the different levels of advancement of spirits, taking a moment to remember the great spirit, Allan Kardec, that came to help codify this wonderful doctrine for us. Let me just get my... Great. So before we get really into the topic today, I would like to take a moment to go through some definitions. And this is really important because in the Spirits book, many times, right, the Spirits book is from the 1800s, and then it's been translated from different languages. So there's some vocabulary that we don't always use in our day-to-day lives, or the meaning might have changed over time. So it's always a good idea and always important to, grab a dictionary, do a Google search for certain words if you're not sure what they mean. So it just helps us clarify the topic and what we were discussing. So the first definition to go over is spirit. So when we're talking about the spirit hierarchy, what do we mean by spirit? In the Spirits book, question 76, in the answer, it says, spirit is the intelligent beings of the creation. They populate the universe outside the material world. So what we're talking about here is not just us that are incarnated here on earth living our lives. It's not just our status, especially when we're talking about hierarchy. It's not just our status here on earth. It's our spirit as a whole, looking at the bigger picture. Who are we with all of our reincarnations, right? Things that we don't currently remember right now, but have happened to us and make us who we are. And it's not about the status we have here on earth, but again, the status of that spirit, that we all are incarnated and disincarnated in the spirit world. The other definition to bring here is hierarchy. So a hierarchy is a system or organization in which people or groups are ranked one above the other according to status or authority. So when we think of a hierarchy, we usually think of maybe a European feudal system where there's a king on top and, the royal family on top, and then the nobles and the knights and the peasants, and they're very structured in this order. We might also think about a system like the Indian caste system, in which, based on the family you're born into, you're at a certain societal level, and you're going to remain there for the rest of your life. But one big difference typically when we think of hierarchies, and one big difference when we're talking about the spirit hierarchy, is that the spirit hierarchy is, we will climb through it. It's not set in stone. So usually these other hierarchies, you're set in whatever level you were determined to be in from birth. That's the level you're going to be at. But in the spirit hierarchy, that is not the case. We are going to evolve, and no matter what level we're at, we're going to keep working our way up and getting our way up until we're at the top, which is being perfection, right? Being a pure spirit. And another important difference when we're talking about earthly hierarchies is that we know that the person at the top of the hierarchy, they are not the best person just because they're at the top, right? So we're on earth and we have a lot of earthly passions and imperfectness within us. So that person that's on top, just because they might be the most famous or the most have the most money, they're not necessarily the best person. However, with this spirit hierarchy, it really is who we truly are inside that we go leveling up. So we can't, cheat our way through to a different level. We can't pretend we're in a different level. We can't pay to get into a different level, right? We need to really work for it and earn that progress throughout the different levels. And an interesting fact when I found, and this is why it's so nice to research some of these words, even if we think we know the meaning, an interesting thing that I found is that in the English language, the word hierarchy was first used to make different types of angels in a celestial order. So the first time they were using hierarchy is to determine the different levels of angels. And when we think of what angels are, right, they're high order spirits, they're evolved spirits. So it's very similar to what we're doing here today. We're, kind of giving a structure and order to the level of spirits, the same way it was first used to give a level of angels. So I thought that was an interesting fact. So a lot of our information today is going to be coming from the Spirits book, and the Spirits book is split up into a couple parts. So this is within part 2, and in chapter 1 is where it talks about the spirit, and it really breaks down the spirit hierarchy. So the first thing that the Spirits book does is classify the spirits into 3 main categories, as you can kind of see here. And so the bottom tier is the imperfect spirits. The middle tier is the good spirits. And at the top are the pure spirits, that perfection level that we've already mentioned a little bit. One thing that I do want to point out about this hierarchy is that for Earth, this is a good representation. This pyramid diagram is a good representation for what the population of spirits might look like on Earth. So on Earth, we do have mainly imperfect spirits. We have some handful of good spirits and a very few, or in Earth's case, just one pure spirit that incarnated on Earth. So for Earth, this pyramid is a good description, but when we're talking about the entire universe and all of the spirits out there, it does not necessarily mean that they're in this limited order by number, this quantifying order. But for our examples and our visual representation here today, this makes a good comparison when we're thinking about it. And so the spirits start off making these 3 classifications based on the degrees of advancement of the spirits, based on the qualities they've acquired, and the imperfections they still possess. So as we can imagine, at the top, there's no more imperfections, and at the bottom with the imperfect spirits, there are, and the good is in between that. So one thing to note is that these categories are very broad, but everyone is on their own individual, unique journey. So there's going to be categories, and we might not fit exactly into any of them, right? But these are just broad categories for us to have a general guide of how the spirits might look or how our progress might look. So let's get into the characteristics of each of these 3 categories a little bit. So the first, or the bottom, is the imperfect spirits. So the imperfect spirits, they use material instincts over their moral nature. So they're still very attached to material things and material ideas. So they're worried about money, they're worried about material items, they're worried about their appearance, more than they're worried about morals, about doing the right thing and doing good for the earth. They also have a propensity to do wrong. So they kind of have this natural instinct that they're doing wrong because since they're imperfect, since they're not very evolved, they have a lot of vices. And so, they're filled with pride and selfishness and ignorance and tons of bad qualities that draw them to doing the wrong thing. So that's why when we think of imperfect spirits, we tend to see that they have this propensity, this tendency to do wrong. They also do not have an understanding of God. So they might have it, they have this intuition or a little feeling that there is a God, but they don't understand what God is. They don't really understand God or the divine plan that God has for all of us. Because think about it, right? They're really focused on the material world and what happens in our day-to-day. They're not thinking of this bigger abstract picture. And because they don't understand, we can see that these tend to be people who might say, oh, I don't believe in God or I don't believe in anything. Because if they can't understand it, right, they can't understand that it's out there, they can't understand what God is, then they'd rather just choose to not believe it. But I think what shows that they have this intrinsic feeling of God is that how many examples do we know people who say that they don't believe in God, but when hard times come, they pray, right? There's a song that says everyone prays in the end, because when we're going through a hard time, whether we believe in God or believe in spirituality or whatever it may be, when we're going through a hard time, we'll give it a shot, right? We'll pray. We need help. So you can, I think that's, in my opinion, that's a good example of how you can, kind of have this feeling that God's there, that, okay, let me ask for help for this, divine enlightenment that's out there, but not having any sort of understanding of what that God is. Another thing to point out is that although they're imperfect, they're not all entirely bad. So some of them, yes, they might be wanting to be mean, and they might be, committing crimes on purpose. Some of them might want to joke around and mess with you, play tricks on you. But some of them, they're not doing terrible things, but they're also not doing good. So we can't just be neutral, and we'll see that a little bit later on. We need to also be working towards the good. So maybe they're not doing terrible things, but they're also not doing great things. So they're still in that imperfect category. Their ideas lack elevation. So we can think of, in this imperfect category, that they're not as evolved, right? So they're still learning. So their ideas are not going to be very elevated. But that doesn't mean they don't have intelligence. They do have some knowledge. They will have some knowledge from what they're going through, experiencing, and learning. They will be learning and gaining knowledge, but that doesn't mean that their ideas are going to be great ideas. So, right, how many criminals do we hear about that had almost an evil genius master plan, right? That if you think about it, that was very intelligent, their plan. But instead of using that intelligence for the good, they used it for evil. They used it for wrongdoing. So they do have some intelligence, some knowledge, but their ideas are not elevated because of this moral, the material instinct over moral nature. And they have a narrow knowledge of the spirit world. So if we're in communication with a spirit who is in this imperfect order, they might be able to tell us some things, but they don't have all the knowledge. So even if they want to tell us the right thing, they don't know everything about the spirit world. And a way we can think about this is like a little kid that's telling you about their school. They might tell you bits and pieces of information. Some things might make sense, some things might not make sense, because some things they didn't understand, right? They might tell you, oh, there's an octopus at my school. But really, if you dig into it, the octopus is a painting that they made in their class that they hung it up on the wall, and not a real life octopus. So it's that kind of example. It's not that they are necessarily trying to tell us wrong information, but they don't have a full understanding of what they're experiencing. And also their experiences get mixed up with what they know as corporeal world and their existence is. So they just don't have the knowledge to share a lot of information about the spirit world with us. And these spirits, they do suffer, but not eternally. So a common misconception with imperfect spirits, we can think of a common notion of demons or devils, if we're thinking about really, malicious spirits. But the common misconception is that if you do wrong, you're going to go to hell and stay there forever. You're going to go to eternity to suffer. And you are going to suffer, because if we're doing wrong to ourselves and to others, we're going to have to make up for those, have consequences for our actions, make up for those things we did. But that suffering is not going to last forever. It might feel like it's lasting forever. It might, right? It's not going to feel great, especially depending on the crimes, the things that we've committed, but it's not actually going to last eternally. And we will have a chance to come out of that suffering and continue to improve. And again, everyone will make it to the top of that pyramid in our example. So now let's get into the good spirits. So this is the second category that we have. The good spirits, on the other hand, we'll see a lot of this is kind of in contradiction with the imperfect spirits. The good spirits have a predominance of moral nature over material instincts. So we see that sentence flipped. now they're more focused on doing good, as their category suggests. They're more focused on doing good, being kind to other people, than being attached to material things, right? Than worrying about their appearance or what, car they drive or anything like that. They also possess intelligence, wisdom, and or charity. So they have these better qualities, right? Before with the imperfect spirits, we were talking about selfishness and pride, but these spirits, they're more advanced with their knowledge, with their intelligence, and also morally. And they could be at different levels, right? Someone might be a little more advanced intellectually, someone might be more advanced morally, but all of them in this category have some advancement in all of these, in intelligence, in wisdom, and in charity and helping others. They do, though, because they're not at the perfect, at the pure spirit level, they do still have some weaknesses and some imperfections. And they're working towards that. They're still going through trials. They're still learning. They're still making mistakes that they have to get through. But they do have this desire to do good. They do understand God. So where our imperfect spirits did not have that understanding of God, these good spirits now do understand God, do understand, the mission they're on, the work that they're trying to do, bettering themselves. So although they have weaknesses and they have imperfections, they have a better picture of this divine plan and what's in store. They have a desire to do good. So as we were just mentioning, they're not perfect. They're not doing good all of the time. They might slip, they might fall, but they have this desire, this willingness to do good that drives them. So they, compared to what we were seeing with the imperfect spirits who are not doing any good, or, maybe just a little bit of good, these spirits really have the desire to do good, to help other people. And they also feel happiness. So as we talked about, the imperfect spirits do have, a lot of suffering. And while these spirits are still doing wrongdoings, they're understanding that, they're trying their best, they're working hard, and they feel happiness when they're in this desire to do good, when they're helping other people. So they do feel a level of happiness. And they still have trials to undergo. So if they're still imperfect, that means they're still going to go through trials just like all of us, but different trials. They're going to go through trials to continue their learning, gain more knowledge, whether morally, intellectually, both, gain that knowledge to continue their advancement. Because again, they're good spirits, they're getting better, they're more evolved, but they're not at perfection quite yet. And then lastly, at the top, we have our pure spirits. So our pure spirits, quite simply, matter has no influence over these spirits. So, right, the imperfect spirits are so materialistic. They're really focused on matter. The good spirits, they're focused more on their morals, but they do have some imperfections. So they might be worried about their appearance a little bit, or they might have some little quality that is focused on material. But the pure spirits, the perfect spirits, matter has no influence on them. So they're not worried about what they're wearing or their, anything materialistic, because they have an understanding that this world is only temporary. And what really matters is the spiritual world and our morals and our intelligence, which, are not material things that we can touch and quantify. And they have moral and intellectual superiority. So again, they've learned it all. While the good spirits were getting there, the pure spirits have gotten there. They morally and intellectually, they have all of the knowledge and are superior in that sense. So this can almost even be a little hard for us to understand. It's almost like thinking of someone who's learned everything, who's gotten every college degree and knows everything and is always good and always just and kind. But they have this complete total knowledge. So just to recap a little bit on our three categories. So we have our imperfect spirits, who they're materialistic, they're limited, they have limited knowledge, limited experiences. They're lacking, right? They're lacking good virtues, they're lacking the desire to do good, and they're lacking some knowledge on the spirit world and God, as we talked about. And they have this propensity to do wrong. So they have, although, they might be trying to do better, they have this tendency to do wrong things. Our good spirits have an understanding of morals. They have some knowledge. They have an understanding of God. They have, right, their morals. They're working on their morals. They have this desire to do good more than focused on material things. And they feel happy because they're doing good, because they're striving to help others. They do experience happiness. And our pure spirits are perfection. In every sense of the word, that the pure spirits are perfect. So when the Spirits book is done kind of classifying these three bigger categories, it breaks us down into 10 smaller categories for us to dive a little deeper into, right, what does it mean to be an imperfect spirit, right? Are we all the same? Is there different levels? A good spirit and the pure spirit will remain only one category, because there's only one, level of perfection, which is perfection. So they split the imperfect spirits into 5 categories, the good spirits into 4 categories, and the pure spirits remain one category. So, of course, we need to understand that this is going to be gradient. This is not going to be, everyone fits perfectly into one category. But what the spirits are doing here is trying to give us some more characteristics and be a little more specific for us. But if we wanted to, or if the spirits wanted to, they could have split this up into 100 categories or 1,000 categories. There could have been many, many subdivisions. But for our understanding and our clarification, they split it into 10 categories that we'll dive deep into a little deeper. So the 10th class is the impure spirits. So this is the bottom, and just going back to the last slide here, you can see the 10 is the last one and 1 is at the top. So that last class on the bottom is the 10th class, which is the impure spirits. These spirits, they are inclined to wrongdoing, and they make it the center of their attention. So they want to do wrong, right? They have this tendency to do wrong, and they want to. They're focused on that. They also give false and devious advice. So when we're, maybe participating in silly or silly games trying to summon spirits, such as a Ouija board, and if we get one of these impure spirits, they're going to give us bad advice and maybe even hurtful advice. And we know that also the spirits, not only in a setting where, if we're trying to summon spirits to us, but if we drop ourselves to that vibration, to that low vibration, they can connect with us and kind of have an influence over us. So in those moments, right, they might be feeding us without us even realizing it, feeding us false and devious advice. So this is not that they're trying to trick us. This is that they're really being, mean and putting bad ideas in our heads. This could lead to, suicidal thoughts or harmful thoughts to yourself or others. So it's not, they're not giving silly little advice. They're really trying to give bad and hurtful advice. And they like to cause conflict. So, right, again, they're not interested in being good at all. They want to cause conflict and cause people to get mad and be in difficult situations. And they torment weak people. So as we mentioned, right, if you go down into a lower vibration, if you, had a really bad day and you just let yourself get so down that they can kind of sink in with your thoughts, then they'll also torment people. Like if you can't resist their influence, they want to torment the weak people. So they're not going to say a false advice and then just leave, right? They'll keep at it. They'll keep tormenting with, thoughts and ideas that the person might not even realize are coming from an outside source. They also fail trials of the corporeal life. So, we're all faced with trials. Earth is a world of trials and atonements. So we are all faced with trials every day. But they're kind of failing their trials. They're not getting through them. And, we'll keep getting more and more chances, but they're not progressing. They're not learning. They're just doing wrong. And they're addicted to vices. So when we see these spirits reincarnating on Earth or incarnated on Earth, they're the type of humans that are addicted to all vices. They're addicted to, taking pleasure in cruelty, in deceit, in greed, and they're, so addicted. And since they're not very morally advanced, they can't really hide that. So you can really tell that by their character and how they behave. And they do terrible things for no reason. So it doesn't have to be for a specific reason that they want to do something terrible. They just want to do it because they want to, and that's it. They use vulgar and trivial language. So one thing we'll see a lot as we're going through these categories is that these spirits tell us that we can identify the class or the level of evolution of the spirit by the language they use. So these are very low evolved spirits. So they're not going to be able to have good knowledge or good words to share with us. So if they're using vulgar, if they're using bad language or trivial language, they're just using very simple vocabulary, that could be a sign for us to identify that this is not a highly evolved spirit talking to us. And these are the spirits that are commonly referred to as demons, evil geniuses, or bad spirits. So in our society, right, even if people don't directly say spirits, when people are talking about concepts like demons and devils and bad spirits, evil geniuses, right, or this little image here, this idea, right, these are these impure spirits who are really just mean and doing mean because they want to be mean. But, just talking about this class of spirit can feel very negative, right? And can kind of bring us down because we're like, geez, like, how are these spirits just doing these terrible things because they want to, right? They're just not evolved. But the Spirits book does come to console us that in question 116, Allan Kardec asks, do any spirits remain in the lower ranks forever? And the spirits answered, no. They all eventually become perfect. They change over the course of time, no matter how long the progress may take. As we have already explained, a just and merciful Father cannot condemn his children to eternal banishment. Do you presume that God, in his infinite goodness and divine justice, is less kind than you? So, right, we can, even though we heard all of those really negative qualities, we can take a sigh of relief that no, those are all spirits that will become perfect as well, right? They're one of us. Maybe we were there before, right, going through those same things. They will become perfect. We will become perfect, all of us. No matter how many times we fail our trial, right? God is just and merciful, and he's not going to condemn us forever. Again, we're going to have to make up for our mistakes. We're going to have to do better for the wrong things we did, but we're going to get chance after chance after chance to keep working towards our progress and our evolution and our perfection. And it might take a long time, though, for us to get to this point. And so that is the justice of reincarnation. The fact that we can try and try and try again, and it doesn't have to be in just this one lifetime, because that lifetime goes pretty quick, right? In the blink of an eye, that lifetime is gone in the grand scheme of things. So the justice of reincarnation is that we continue to to come back so that we have more chances and more chances and more chances, no matter how long it takes us to learn and to get through the challenges we need to overcome. So in Spirit's book, question 171, in the answer, the Spirits say, an affectionate father always grants his children the opportunity to redeem themselves, no matter how rebellious they may be. So, right, similar to that answer that we just previously saw, but in a different question, saying, right, God is going to give us opportunity to redeem ourselves. It's not one and done. Oh, you messed up. That's it. You're done. No, here's another chance. Here's another chance, as many chances as we need. God will give us. And that's the justice of reincarnation, knowing that, okay, I'm trying my best now, but if I fail, we'll try again. We'll try again. And if, we have to overcome that at some point. So we can't just say, oh, I'll wait for later. We can wait for later, but eventually we're going to have to come back and tackle that. But that's the justice of reincarnation, that we have limitless chances at trying to get better and improve ourselves. The ninth class we have is our frivolous spirits. So these spirits are ignorant, mischievous, irrational, and masters of ridicule. So these spirits, they might not be doing mean, like to be harmful and hurtful, but they want to play pranks. They want to trick you and play jokes on people. They reply, and this is in terms, again, of having any sort of communication with these spirits, they reply with no regards to the truth. So they're not trying to tell you hurtful things like the impure spirits, but they're just going to tell you whatever answer comes to mind or whatever they want to trick you about. And they like irritating people, giving false hope, and misleading others. So again, not trying to hurt you, but definitely mentally or emotionally harm you, in that they're irritating you, they're bugging you, they're leading you down the wrong path, or they're giving you false hope that something's going to happen when it's not. These are spirits that, again, when we're looking in society and, in fiction and time, that they're called goblins, sprites, will-o'-the-wisps, or gnomes. And so these are little creatures that, goblins are kind of little creatures that get up to trouble and do bad things. Sprites are these little fairies that I showed a picture here, which, might look cute, and fairies might have a nicer idea of fairies nowadays. But, these fairies, although they're cute, right, they're up to trouble, they're doing mischief, they're bothering people. Will-o'-the-wisps is actually, in time, there was this tale that there would be this light over a swamp, and people would follow it blindly because they saw that light. But it was actually not to follow, and then they would get injured in that swamp. And gnomes. Today, we also have a much kind of cuter imagery of gnomes, but historically, gnomes were meant to be like little creatures that, again, are kind of up to trouble, mischievous, etc. These spirits are actually utilized as servants for higher order spirits. So they work for the higher order spirits, doing things that are less intellectually evolved, and they do help the higher order spirits in that way. They're pretty superficial and sarcastic in communication. So again, with the language, right? How can we identify these frivolous spirits? They'll be superficial and sarcastic in their communications. So they're going to talk very high level. They're going to talk about things they like or don't like, and be sarcastic. So they'll point out things in you and be like, oh, I like your shirt. And, but they don't mean it. So that's some of the language that we can pick up on to see that the frivolous spirits. And they like to borrow highly respected names just for fun. So, they'll come and they'll say, oh, I'm Jesus, or oh, I'm this person, but they're just saying it just to trick you again. They really just want to, for them, have fun and trick you. So, as we're thinking about this and we're thinking of, geez, why are these spirits like this, and why are these spirits on different paths? Well, in question of the Spirits book, question 115 says that we all start off simple and ignorant, right? God created us all simple and ignorant, and then we have our free will to go on certain paths. So if we look at this little image here, right, maybe we chose to go on the same path as someone, but then eventually we deviate, or maybe we decided to go a completely different way, or our paths cross with someone else at some point, but then we deviate. So so we all start simple and ignorant, but then we all have our free will to act and go forward and make our choices. And some of the spirits might choose to be in this phase of being frivolous and mischievous. And of course, we know, right, that in reality, our path is not going to look as simple as this other path. It's really going to look like this, right? It's going to have a lot more challenges. It's going to have a lot more, points that we're unsure. When we're looking at those little simple lines, we say, oh, I can see that this is the path. But when we look at, here, you can say, oh, this is kind of unclear. We're going to make turns. We're going to go upside down, and we're going to do all sorts of crazy things. So we know our path is going to be a lot longer and crazier than those straight little lines. But the general idea that we have the free will to choose which path we're going to take. And in the Spirit's Book, question 115a, the Spirit Book gives us another example of clarification, that spirits are like children who are born unaware and without experience in this corporeal life. So, right, again, simple and ignorant. We're all born with this kind of like this blank slate. But then we gradually acquire experiences and knowledge that shape us into who we are. And so some children, right, might rebel and not want to learn, and so they're going to go on a different path, while some might be doing good, picking up on things quickly and learning quickly, and they want to do good, so they go on another path. So just like children growing up in a corporeal existence, this is kind of how we can see the spirit going, right? We learn different things based on where we are in our lives, and with those different things, we have the free will to act in different ways. And of course, the only difference in this comparison is that when we're talking about a baby, we're talking about one corporeal existence. When we're talking about a spirit, we're talking about, many and many and many incarnations. And also, right, although we have question 122 comes to clarify that although we have free will, when we're simple and ignorant and we don't have a lot of knowledge, we do get a lot of influence from the world around us. So, right, looking at these little kids thinking about, what they want to be when they grow up. Well, they might not know. So right, they don't have it. So they'll pick things that they have exposure to. So they'll pick, I want to be a doctor because my mom's a doctor, or I want to be an astronaut because I saw that on TV, or they'll pick things based on the influence that, their surroundings have had on them. However, right, when they get older and they get more knowledge, they might realize, oh no, that's not actually the path for me. I'm going to go on this completely other path, or they might still go down that path. So although we have free will, we do have a lot of influence from external factors as well. And so the 8th class of spirits is our false scholars. Our false scholars, they have some knowledge, but they think they know more than they do. So they, they have some intelligence, but then they want to say they know it all, that they're the best, that they know everything. So we have to be careful with spirits who, claim to know everything. Their language has a tone of dignity. So they will talk to you very serious, and it might be very believable that they know what they're talking about because they feel dignified. They feel like they know it all. But their ideas are often flawed. So they do have some knowledge, so they're going to be saying some good things, but they don't have total knowledge, right? Their knowledge is still very incomplete. So their ideas are going to contain some flaws based on, their personal lives or what they've experienced. And again, because of that, they'll combine truth with absurd errors. So we have to be careful, because if we look at first glance, it might look like it's really nice. But the truth is, right? They can be saying absurd errors within those truths. And they usually have arrogance, pride, jealousy, and stubbornness because, right, they want to be the best. They want to think that they have all the knowledge, so they don't want to take other people's help or admit that they're wrong. An example of this is the common saying, right, a wolf in sheep's clothing. So this wolf can go and dress as a sheep and talk to all these sheep and convince them, but the sheep need to kind of look between the lines to see that this is really a wolf and not the sheep that they're, hearing and expecting. And question 120 of the Spirits book comes to tell us, right, Kardec asks, do all spirits travel the road of evil to arrive at good? And the Spirit said, the road traveled is more like the one of unawareness rather than the evilness. So it's not because, right, these false scholars are intentionally trying to trick people. They truly believe that they know all the information, that they, that they know it all, and they want to share that, and they want people to appreciate them for that. But right, they just have unawareness. So it's not that they want to be evil, but they just don't have that full awareness and are still committing these wrongdoings. The seventh class is the neutral spirits. So these spirits, they neither good enough to do right, nor bad enough to do wrong. So they're not doing a lot of good, but they're also not doing a lot of bad. They're neutral. They're strongly attached to things of this world. So they're still very materialistic, and that's what kind of keeps them in this neutral state, that they don't want to do bad because, right, maybe they don't want to lose their material things, but they're also not doing good. They're not willing to share or help other people, let's say. And these spirits are equal to humankind in both our integrity and our intelligence. So these are the spirits that, constitutes most of us here on earth, that we, right, we're trying to do good, right? Think about it. We all can say, oh, I'm doing good. I volunteer at this. I donate money here. I give, this to other people. I help a friend in need. But also, who of us, right, doesn't do a little wrong? Who of us doesn't gossip? Or who of us doesn't procrastinate, right? We all have a little wrong that we're doing, even though we're trying to do a little right. So we're kind of in this neutral state that we're not yet morally advanced, that we're doing the good for the desire to do good. And in the end, we're responsible for our actions. So if we look at this image here, right, everyone's working together, working on their piece of the puzzle, and we can stop, right? We can say, oh, you know what? I've had enough being good today. I have enough helping, so I'm going to go take a break, and you all keep going. And that's fine, right? The project will keep getting completed, but we're not helping our advancement. So that's up to us. It's up to us if we want to, it's up to us if we're going to stay as a neutral spirit, not working towards the good. And just because we're not doing bad, right? It's not that this person went in and broke the whole puzzle. They just stopped working on it. But being neutral is not enough. We need to take that other step. We need to do good and proactively work towards our advancement. And so we're responsible for those actions and for our advancement. Sixth, we have our boisterous and disruptive spirits. So these spirits, it's interesting because although we think about this pyramid and we think about the different categories, these boisterous and disruptive spirits really can belong to any of the imperfect order classes. So imagine them kind of mixed throughout. These spirits reveal themselves through phenomena perceptible to people. So think about knocking or, movement in the wind or objects moving. They reveal through physical phenomena. And because of that, right, they're attached to matter more than any type of spirit. So that's why they communicate through objects, because they're really attached to matter. And they're actually the principal agents in determining changes in the physical elements. So when there's storms or, we can think of tsunami or hurricane, they're usually the spirits that are behind changing these physical elements. And of course, though, that doesn't mean that these spirits just get to decide whenever they want to have a storm. But the the more highly evolved spirits, they use these boisterous and disruptive spirits when it's time for something like that to happen. And of course, the higher order spirits could do this themselves, but they, will focus more on the intellectual matter and let these spirits take care of that physical, material aspect. And an example of this, is the turning tables, right? Which in France was a form of entertainment that people would go to this room and they would, put their hands on a table and the table would move and respond to them based on knocks and eventually from a pencil tied to a basket. And so this communication was through physical phenomena, moving of objects and things like that. So that's a prime example that we have of these boisterous and disruptive spirits. And again, with the idea that this is gradient. So first, the spirits came to categorize us into three categories. Then they came and divided the spirit hierarchy into 10 categories to help us understand. But the truth is, it's all gradient. So these boisterous and disruptive spirits, they're really right all over the imperfect spirits, and someone might be, in between 7 and 8, or they might be 6 and 8. So it's actually gradient and a lot different, and everyone is their own unique person. So it's important to remember that we're not stuck to just these 10 categories. The fifth class now is the benevolent spirits. So these spirits shine in their sense of kindness. They take pleasure in helping, but they have a narrow knowledge. So we can think of these spirits that they are using, right now we're in the good spirits. So they're using their morals. So they have this kindness, this goodness, and they want to help people, but intellectually, they're not as advanced. And again, advanced morally, but not intellectually. And so an example that I think that is a good comparison for us is Mother Teresa, right? Mother Teresa, we know her, that she came to help the poor and the sick and always shared that kindness, that goodness. And of course, she must have had some intellectual advancement, but that's not what, she's known for. That's not the forte of what she was working for. She's really working on this kindness. And what's important to remember, I wish I could get there, right? I wish we could get to the good spirits and keep evolving. And when will we get to that point? Well, it's a journey, right? It's a staircase that we're always going up. But when a spirit finishes a trial, they learn the lesson that they learn, they never forget it. So we will never forget those things that we learn. So as we're working step by step, day by day, going through challenges, if we have learned that task, if we have earned it completely, we're not going to forget it. And we will keep working up to this point of being, right, better and better each day, to this point that we can be in the good spirits. And fourth, we have the scholarly spirits, which is kind of the a little bit of a contrast to the fifth class benevolent spirits. So these spirits, they have a vast extent of knowledge. So intellectually, right? Scholarly, their intelligence is very, very high. They are more interested, though, in scientific research than moral issues. So compared to someone like Mother Teresa, who's really focusing on moral issues and goodness, they're really focused on scientific research. And they are entirely free of the passions possessed by imperfect spirits. So they're not doing research because they want to get rich or they want to get famous. They're doing research for the betterment of humanity, to help other people, and for practical use. So an example, again, that I think is a good comparison here is Albert Einstein. So Albert Einstein, we know as, one of the greatest geniuses to come on Earth, and doing so much for us in the scientific realm. And Einstein did actually have, some advanced morals as well. Einstein was known for also helping in the civil rights movement and other morals. So he had moral qualities, right? He's in the good spirits. he's in the good spirit. So he's not that he doesn't have morals, but what is he really focused on? This scientific research, this scientific aspect of helping people. And an important thing to remember is that we can't judge people by their age, right? Here on earth, we tend to judge by age of, oh, this person's older, so they're wiser because they've lived longer. But the truth is, when we look at our spirit, right, who is older, who has gone through maybe more reincarnations or different reincarnations from us, they went through a trial that we haven't, so maybe they're more knowledgeable in that aspect, right? Maybe the child has been through more reincarnations and is also evolved more in that time. So it's actually more evolved than the older person, right? Maybe two people who are the same age are not at the same evolution. So we can't judge. We shouldn't try to compare ourselves to others, but we can't. It's not a level comparison because we don't know the full story of who each of us are as spirits when we look at our whole existence. So it's important to keep that in mind, right? Because we're on Earth the same time as incredible spirits such as Einstein, but it doesn't mean, right, that, oh, I should be like Einstein's immediately, right? Maybe he's had a lot more reincarnations working on that. But we all have that same goal of working towards perfection. The third class is the wise spirits. So these spirits, they're extremely elevated morals. They have the intellectual capacity to judge people and things correctly. So they're now using their morals with their knowledge. So they're combining their knowledge and those morals to be able to, have a great intellectual capacity and judge people and things correctly and do good with their knowledge. So an example we have of this is Socrates. Socrates was a great ancient Greece philosopher that in the book On the Way to the Light, they tell us that Socrates came to pave the way for Jesus to come with his teachings. Socrates was starting to set that blueprint for Jesus to come and the people to already have the seeds inside of them. And so, right, we know Socrates for this wisdom, and the wisdom is this combination of knowledge with the morals. When we look at our second class spirits, these are our superior spirits. So these spirits are almost at perfection. They exemplify scientific knowledge, wisdom, and goodness. So they have all of those three categories that we were just talking about. They have all of that. They have the knowledge, they have the wisdom, and the goodness. They're always benevolent, dignified, and elevated. So they're always doing good. They're always helping others, always respected and elevated. They share honest ideas with those who want to seek honest truth. So they're not going to spend their time in silly little games like we saw the frivolous spirits. But if you're asking, sincerely for questions and information, they'll give us as much knowledge as we're ready to hear. And they may incarnate on Earth to accomplish a mission of advancement or development, but this is in extreme circumstances because they're so far elevated that it takes a lot of preparation for them to come back to such a materialistic world such as Earth. But they may incarnate to accomplish a mission in helping us in our development. And as we mentioned, and they show us the ideal perfection that we can hope to attain on Earth. So, right, perfection that we strive for, they are examples of it. And they combine this goodness, knowledge, and wisdom of the other classes. They have all of it. They just aren't at that level of perfection yet, but they're almost right there. And lastly, of course, we have our pure spirits. Our pure spirits, again, are our perfection in every sense of the word. They have climbed every rung of the ladder of progress. They've gone through all the steps. It's not that they were just one day, they just were perfect. They've gone through all of these trials and atonements. They got rid of all their impurities. They no longer experience trials and atonements because they're perfect. They don't have anything else to test or to learn or to make up for. And because of that, since they don't need any more trials and atonements, they no longer need reincarnation. Because reincarnation is there for us to continue learning and growing, but they've already learned. So now they're just working without having to reincarnate. And they experience permanent happiness and the eternal life in the immediate presence of God. God's messengers and ministers. So they are God's messengers and ministers, executors of God's will in maintaining universal harmony. They control over all inferior spirits, so we know that they govern our planets and help us and guide us along the way. They genuinely strive to help human beings, again, always helping us progress, watching over us, always there for us. People can communicate with them, but not very often, right? They're so highly evolved that we're not very much often in contact directly with them, but we can feel their presence, right? We can sense their goodness and their love. And these are spirits who are commonly called angels, archangels, or seraphim. And of course, on earth, our example of a pure spirit was Jesus Christ. Jesus was the only spirit to incarnate. Again, he didn't reincarnate, but he just incarnated on earth to show us the path, to show us the way to him, right? To this perfection, to this purity, and give us this example and this guidance. Of course, there are many other pure spirits, but for us on earth, this is our example. This is our model and our guide. And, although it might seem overwhelming to see all of these categories and all that we have to climb and to grow, we have to remember that we just need to take it day by day, step by step, one challenge at a time to continue our improvement, right? We have eternity to keep improving. If we make a mistake, we can start over again, but the time to start is right now. So I'll leave you all with a message from Chico Xavier, where he said, "If I had waited for a more evolved spiritual condition to be of service, I would, as yet, not have commenced." So now is the time, right? We don't have to wait until we're more evolved. We have to start now, bettering ourselves now, working on our progress now, because it's up to us how fast we're going to move up, how fast we're going to get through our trials, and always knowing, right, that the higher order spirits, that Jesus is there to help us along our journey. Thank you all so much for being here with me today. I'm so glad to have shared this moment with you all today.
Thank you very much indeed, Beatriz, to be with us, sharing this knowledge, which is so helpful to us to understand. But we would also kindly ask if it's possible for you to close our meeting with a prayer. Would that be possible?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Taking a moment to remember these higher order spirits guiding us, asking them for inspiration and guidance. To all of us spirits who are working towards our progress, taking this moment to soak in this information and knowledge so that we too can keep progressing and moving forward, bettering ourselves day by day, helping all those around us who need help. And so be it.
Thank you very much indeed, Beatriz. So be it to be in this special moment for us, all of us from the Spiritist Psychological Society, say thank you to you. And I hope this was the first of many opportunities that we have to be together, learning Spiritism and growing and evolving together as well. We also give thanks for all of those who have been with us throughout this time, this moment of reflections, wishing you peace to all, and also peace to you, Bea, to your family, and all of your friends around there. And those who are with us, who would like to carry on with us in our later study in Portuguese, feel welcome, 8 p.m. London time, with our study Evangelho e Mediunidade em Minha Vida. Otherwise, we wish you well, much peace, and we say bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you so much.